In this lecture, we'll be exploring the impact of co-articulation of phonemes and allophones on teaching reading and spelling, and how this can support you to analyze errors in students' speech, reading, and spelling. We'll be covering instruction of phonological awareness, discussing the reciprocal relationship between phonemic awareness, reading, and spelling, the progression of phonological awareness skills from easier to harder, the influence of phonemic awareness on orthographic mapping and teaching sight words, which will be covered in future lectures as well. And we will introduce some of the general principles that are grounded in research for teaching phonological awareness and phonemic awareness. The phonological and phonemic awareness skills are acquired and refined gradually over time, over a process of several years. Children generally move from being able to attend to and work with larger units of speech, such as words, syllables, onsets, and rhymes, to smaller units, the individual phonemes. In other words, they move from phonological awareness to phonemic awareness. However, many children can start working with phonemes even from the beginning of kindergarten without ever moving through the phonological awareness skills. In general, students move from global processing of words to detailed insight into the internal details of the word's sounds. Both reading and spelling depend on proficiency of phonemes. This means advanced skills like substituting one phoneme for another in a spoken word and being able to do that task with automaticity without having to give it any conscious thought. Blending at all levels is typically easier for students than segmenting. So blending syllables may even be easier than segmenting individual words. It can be useful to try phonemic awareness tasks, such as isolating individual sounds in words, even at the start of kindergarten. If students struggle with this skill, drop back to larger linguistic units. That can be helpful to give students the concept of what you're asking them to do. In teaching phoneme awareness, phonics, or spelling, simple syllables should be taught first and complex syllables later. This means start your phonemic awareness instruction with words that don't contain blends, simple CVC or even VC words like mom or on. Not all blends are equally difficult to process. Blends with liquid and nasal sounds can be more challenging for students to identify in the speech stream. Teach students to detect syllables and syllable stress auditorily. Teach them to feel the drop of their jaw as each syllable is spoken, or hold their lips together and feel the push of breath as each syllable is produced. Or even the strategy of calling the dog. Pretend that the word is a dog's name. The stressed syllable is held the longest and the loudest. What is clear in the research is that students eventually, by the end of kindergarten, need to be able to work with individual phonemes. Speech is produced as a series of undivided sounds. Our brains learn to perceive and interpret in a way that leads us to believe that phonemes are discrete sounds. Minimal pairs are words that differ only by one speech sound, like the words bat and bet. This is how the phonemes of a language are identified. We have discussed the distinctive features of consonant and vowel phonemes and how they can be arranged on charts to support young children to learn to distinguish them first in speech. When students can distinguish the sounds in minimal pairs of words and identify which sound makes one word different from another, that indicates a level of phonemic awareness that supports decoding, spelling, and vocabulary development. But phoneme awareness is difficult because the stream of speech is unsegmented. Phonemes are smushed together or co-articulated. Co-articulation causes subtle variation in how phonemes are formed in the mouth. This reality contributes to the difficulty of phoneme segmentation and ultimately the mental mapping of sounds to letters. Most allophonic variation is systematic. It's driven by a set of unconscious phonological rules for the production of sounds in words. Every speaker uses these predictable variations. Allophones are variations unconsciously produced in phoneme articulation that are rule-based. They occur in the speech of all members of the language community. Allophones, although slightly varying from the prototype, are still recognized as belonging to the category of sound we identify as a phoneme. For example, the t sound in the words table, swept, little, and tray. It's the t sound, but it sounds slightly different in each of those words. Even within the word tempest, the first t and last t in the word tempest change slightly. These are allophonic variations. Let's briefly go through the allophones or systematic variations that govern the production of sounds in words. These are things we do unconsciously as speakers of English. Reading teachers need to be aware of how these systematic patterns can result in difficulties for students so they can be proactively prevented with explicit instruction or recognized for what they are and corrected when students make these errors. Schwa is a non-distinct vowel found in unstressed syllables. Sometimes it sounds like a short U or a short I sound. It actually can be represented by several letters in spelling. We apply changes in stress automatically in speech. The identity of phonemic segments is obscured by the properties of the speech stream. One syllable is stressed in multisyllable words. The others are either unstressed or given secondary stressed. Schwa itself has allophones, sometimes sounding like a short U, sometimes sounding like a short I. Think of words like sofa, ribbon, circus, mistake. Any vowel letters can be used to represent schwa. Schwa vowels in speech cannot be sounded out for spelling, so this is something that needs to be taught to students. Vowels are nasalized when spoken before a nasal consonant. We do it automatically. It is common for spelling errors to occur in words with nasalized vowels. Say the word fan. The a sound in fan is nasalized because it comes before the nasal consonant n. Contrast that with the a sound in the word fat. Fan, fat. If you think about it, the a sound is different in those two different words. We recognize them both as a automatically, although the pronunciation is slightly different. This is a cause of common spelling errors. It's a common spelling error to leave out nasal consonants in a word when the nasal comes before a final stop consonant and after a vowel. Words like jump or want. Most errors in phonemic awareness, reading, and spelling instruction occur with consonants at the ends of words. Aspiration is characteristic of voiceless stop consonants in certain positions. K, p, and t have at least two allophonic forms, aspirated and unaspirated. Hold your open palm about 1 inch from your mouth and say the following words. Candy canes make good presents. Notice where a push of breath accompanies the p, t, or k. Here's another sentence. Let's play giant steps and tag. The deaspirated forms of the voiceless stops can sometimes sound or feel like their voiced equivalents. That is, p can be confused with b, t, or d, or even confused with k and g. Children's spelling errors often show that consonant identity is more elusive when consonants occur within blends or at the ends of words. The consonant after a vowel determines its length. If the consonant that follows the vowel is voiced, the duration of the vowel's articulation is slightly longer. So it is the voicing of the consonant following the vowel that determines its length. The duration of the vowel's articulation is slightly longer if the following consonant is voiced. T and D sounds in the middle of words are pronounced as a tongue flap when they occur between two vowels and the second vowel is not stressed. Words like pudding, writer, or little. The sounds T and D are produced with a tongue flap. Flapping does not automatically occur in words such as rooster and panda because the T and D in those words occur between a consonant and a vowel. Before certain speech sounds, T is articulated differently and D as well because of the influence of the phoneme that follows. Children will often mispronounce and misspell words like train as train, or the word dress as dress. The tongue pushes the vowel up a step higher when the vowel comes before a velar consonant. This is co-articulation at work. Tell your students that their mouths are not fooling them. We don't spell words like train and dress and even educate exactly the way that they sound. The vowel sound changes before a velar consonant due to the tongue raising in anticipation of that consonant after it. Think of words like bag versus bat. At the beginning stages of learning to spell, children show in their spelling attempts an acute awareness of word pronunciation, including allophonic variations in speech. Their spelling attempts are filtered through their phonological processing system. So Tempest was a good example. Tempest has an aspirated T at the beginning, but not at the end of the word. The second vowel in Tempest is reduced to the schwa sound. The first vowel in Tempest is nasalized, tem, because of that nasalized consonant sound, Instruction will have to build awareness of word structure and meaning beyond simply sounding it out. One concrete practice that supports students making the speech to print connection is moving from a word wall to a sound wall. Word walls often organize high frequency, irregular words by first letter. You can see some examples listed here under the letter O. This requires students to know how to spell the word already, which means they don't need the support of a word wall. The way most word walls are implemented is to put words that start with a certain letter under that letter, even if the letter represents different sounds in the different words, like the example here of putting words like one or only or out under the letter O. All of those words start with different sounds. A sound wall takes a different approach. Sound walls are organized like the consonant and vowel charts you saw in the speech to print book. They support students to first attend to the sounds in spoken English and to attend to what their mouths are doing while they make each sound. This provides a scaffold for when students want to spell and write. They can say the sounds in the word they want to write, notice what their mouth is doing, go to that section of the sound wall and see how that sound can be represented in print when the sound is at the beginning or end of a word. Keywords used on sound walls attend to the common sources of confusion we have discussed in previous lectures. For example, choosing the word apple as the keyword for the sound ah instead of the word and, where the ah sound is distorted due to the nasal consonant that follows it. Here are some general principles for teaching phonological awareness based on the information we've covered so far. Follow a general progression of phonological skill development and recognize the relative difficulty of each task. The goal of instruction is progressive differentiation of the internal details of the spoken word for high quality, elaborated representations in memory. Focus students' attention on speech sounds as separate from letters. Work on phonemes, not letters, until you are sure students can tune into speech. Describe phonemes as the parking spots that letters and letter groups will match once attention is turned to print. Transition to working with letters as appropriate. Encourage mouth awareness. Phonemes are speech gestures as well as speech sounds. Use mirrors for this support. Ask students to determine whether their mouths are open or closed, whether they are using their tongue, teeth, or lips when they make the sound. Include instruction on all English phonemes. All phonemes can be taught, including all vowel sounds and sounds represented by digraphs. Think multisensory or multimodal instruction. Involve students' hands, eyes, bodies, and mouths whenever possible. For example, if you're using a keyword like apple for the A sound, give a gesture like you're holding an apple out in front of you. A few brief activities, about 5 to 10 minutes a day for 12 to 20 weeks, are all that most young students need to develop speech awareness. Older students with reading problems may need daily practice within their literacy lessons for several years. Show students what you want them to do. That's the I do it phase. Practice doing it with them, providing scaffolded supports. That's the we do it phase. Different students will need different numbers of repetitions during the we do it phase. And then let students take turns while you provide immediate feedback. That's the you do it phase. Give immediate corrective feedback. If a student makes a mistake, explain the difference and elicit a correct response. Use letters and graphemes to represent sounds as soon as young students have a clear concept of what they represent. Letters reinforce phoneme awareness and support it once students have learned to attend to sounds. Continue to work on advanced phoneme awareness or phonemic proficiency to a high standard of automaticity until students no longer experience lags in reading or spelling.